As we are recording, when using the chat or the Q&A, please recognize your name will be visible as you are named in the program tonight. I'm going to give it just 30 seconds more and we'll get started because we have a big, exciting program tonight. Seeing lots of familiar names. Thank you for joining us. Names from all over the state, which is the wonder of Zoom. Okay, well, my name is Denise Mackey. I am here tonight on behalf of Gail Scar, the WNPS president. I am the executive director, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Native Plant Appreciation Month. I am a member of the committee, but I first want to acknowledge that Native Plant Appreciation Month happens because of a committee that meets monthly and works hard to put together all the parts, starting with our theme and a beautiful picture and a lot of creativity. I'm thrilled to welcome you. I would like to also acknowledge Cece Asplund, Julie O'Donnell, Linda Storm, Acacia England, and Mark Meese, all members of the Native Plant Appreciation Month Committee. This month's theme is exploring biodiversity exercises in community science. And all month long, we will look at different ways we can exercise science in our communities, not just our chapters, but with other groups that we're affiliated with. You can learn more about our theme by visiting the website, linked right from the banner on the homepage at WNPS.org. The month speaker series will continue to share knowledge of Washington State's ecosystem biodiversity and many exercises in the community in monitoring and providing data for science. You will also find the webpage for each chapter includes activities that celebrate native plants through webinars, classes, plant sales, field trips, and volunteer opportunities. Our calendar is bursting, so do be sure to look at it under Get Involved, Events, and you will find events all around the state. WNPS is hosting statewide BioBlitz activities using iNaturalist in April. Visit the WNPS website and the iNaturalist site to learn more about how to get involved. Kat, our speaker tonight, will tell us more about how to use that tool, but we have set up an iNaturalist umbrella project, WNPS Native Plant Appreciation Month BioBlitz 2025, and that will show collections and data from across the state. If you have a project you would like to be invited into the umbrella, please email me, WNPS@WNPS.org. That could be a school project, a chapter project, anything that's happening here in the month of April. We do have a couple of outliers on the margins of April that will fudge into this also based on chapter dates of activity. The mission of the Washington Native Plant Society is to promote the appreciation and conservation of Washington's native plants and their habitats through study, education, and advocacy. If you're already a member, we thank you for joining us. If you're not a member, joining is easy on the homepage, one click away, wnps.org/join. Membership supports native plant conservation and education. It also connects native plant enthusiasts across the state. To learn more about our work, please visit our website and consider becoming a member or leaving a donation. Your donation helps to support more programs like these year-round here at WNPS. I would like to take a moment as a member of actually all chapters, but the Olympic chapter. Tonight, I am speaking from the lands of the Jamestown Sklallam tribe, the originals and continuing stewards of the many diverse ecosystems, Washington. Before our speaker begins, I'd like to invite you to attend next week's program, just in case you haven't signed up yet. It's on April 10th at 7 p.m. And the topic is Community Science in Cascadia, a two-part program with two different speakers featuring Meadowwatch and the Cascade Butterfly Project, all exercises in diversity and community science. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Cat Chang. Ms. Chang is an adjunct professor of architecture at the University of San Francisco. She directs Madrone Design Studio and advises the institution and government agencies. Her work focuses on buildings and landscapes, supporting regenerative ecological, agricultural, and cultural footprints within cities. Her projects engage with environmental issues such as lead toxicity in historic neighborhoods to supporting community agriculture, recreation, and exercise of cultural practice. She lectures publicly, offering talks on community greening, urban agriculture, sustainable design techniques, and using fire hardening efforts to promote biodiversity in fire-prone areas. In addition to that, Kat is a member of the iNaturalist Board of Directors and also the California Native Plant Society. Kat, welcome, and we look forward to your wisdom on using iNaturalist.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. Welcome to Native Plant Appreciation Month, everyone.
Yes, and I have to admit, with the Zoom format, I'm seeing Denise, and I see myself, and I see a little tiny number that says there's 116 participants, but I'm not seeing the participants. You're somewhere. But thank you so much for a wonderful intro, and I am really here to sort of offer an overlook about iNat and a beginning training. And those questions that Denise mentioned could either be in Q&A or in the chat. We're going to hold the responses to the end and try to aggregate any questions that are going to be. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a PowerPoint that just kept getting longer and longer. So I'm going to try to keep it to roughly about an hour. And at the very end, if there's interest, people can either log off, but if there's interest, I'd be happy to go through some tips around identifying as well. But I thought it'd be better if that wasn't necessarily a part of the whole presentation. So, okay. So welcome everybody. iNaturalist is, first of all, it's a community. It is free to join. Every account, 100% free. We're interested in being inclusive and making sure that the entries to join the community are as low as possible. It does help to have a cell phone or computer. There's many ways to be able to join the community, and I'll touch a little bit upon that. But we're thrilled to be able to be here and to help the Washington Native Plant Society kick off their Appreciation Month for native plants. So let's see here. Um, this is the overall structure that I'm going to use tonight. I'm going to cover first, what is iNaturalist? You may have heard a lot of people talk about it, and maybe if you haven't joined yet, you haven't had a chance to kind of look under the hood and see, what's the range of engagement that can occur on the platform. And then I'll move through the other parts as well. So you may have heard that iNaturalist began as a master's thesis project with one of our current co-founders, Kenichi Ueda, and two other Masters of Information Science students came together and created the basic platform for what iNaturalist eventually ended up being. But one of the tenets of the whole project from the beginning was this idea that it's not a top-down organization, that it's open source and it's meant to be broad to reach out to as many people as possible worldwide and try to keep the barriers as minimal as possible. So this is one of the reasons why it's considered all accounts are free. We're really focused on the users to help engage and to produce the data. We're really looking at how the community comes together and is supported by openness. There are moderators on staff, and that is really to help encourage that the discussion stays focused on evidence and stays civil as well. And we really want to make sure that accuracy is as good as it can be as well. So the identification is a very important step in generating an observation for iNaturalist. So one of the things I mentioned to Denise earlier today was it can be a little bit of a rabbit hole. You might consider yourself a plant aficionado, but the longer you spend time with iNat, you might start to go, oh, look over here. There's a beautiful lizard or a moth or something like that. One of the nice things about the platform is it allows for discussion in it. And so because it has that ability for two people or more to discuss what was found or observed, there's a lot of learning that can happen. And through that discussion, that's where I think some of that rabbit hole quality of it comes out of, where all of a sudden you have a little bit more knowledge of the nature that you're focused on, and it can lead to other things. And I have to admit that within the community itself, I now have folks that I've become deep friends with and really enjoy spending time connecting with them and learning from them. So to date, there have been over 230 million observations, and that number is changing. And I love this graphic because it shows where they're all coming from. And I think I can use my mouse here. You can see that there are literally areas where we don't have a lot of data coming from. And those are areas that we have decided, it would be really great to have more observations, but it's a little more difficult maybe to get into some of these places. You can kind of see how they're following either roads or rivers up here in Canada and Alaska. And also over here in Siberia, it's kind of a similar situation as well. But the heat map shows some really amazing density of observation that's happening. These are the different iNaturalist partners. So it's a global network. And some of my favorite folks that I connect to come from the iNaturalista communities that are in Mexico and Guatemala, Colombia. And so I was surprised to see that iNaturalist in Mexico is iNaturalist, but I've seen t-shirts that say iNaturalista, so it's kind of fun. Within the hour that we're together, we do expect that that number of 230 million observations will grow by 5,000. And hopefully there'll be 12,000 identifications at the same time. So, and this is a snapshot of 1 hour of activity that you're seeing in the slide. So it's real-time collaboration that's happening across the globe. Each line shows either an observer and an identifier coming together. And so you can really see how it truly is a global effort. This is a map of our growth from the time that it started to basically to last year. And you can see how there's a really nice gradient of how it's just continually moving. We have peaks in the spring and summer, and that's what you're seeing is the sinuses are in the winter, but there's a tiny bump at the bottom of each of those. That has to do with people in Eastern Europe. They spend so much time indoors. That's the time they process their observations is in the middle of winter. And so that's what that little bump is. It's kind of funny. iNaturalist has probably become the largest database that ends up being cited through GBIF. And that's the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. And so it really has become this place where all of this activity and information is being housed so that people can access it. So it's become very important for many, many researchers and scientists. It also has the largest image database of species. And so you can see that most of the other large image data sets, such as CalFlora, CalPhotos, things like that, they're down here. Observation.org is actually has quite a few as well. And iNaturalist is way up here. So all of those people working together, we're all sort of coming together to, lift up that data. And then we have eyes on it to make sure that the data has accuracy or as good a good amount of accuracy as it can have. We do focus in iNat of having a single underlying taxonomy, and there are many, many folks, actually hundreds of people who volunteer their time as curators to double check that sinometry and things like that are those disagreements are being worked out in some way. It's a community effort when it happens. It's not just one person making a decision. It's very much in the same vein as like Wikipedia, where people come together to talk about issues and then solve them. iNaturalist welcomes both those people who are specialists, but also generalists. So it's, big umbrella for everyone. Because I'm speaking to you, the Washington Native Plant Society, I just wanted to mention really quickly that if you're curious as to how the taxonomy for plant species is standardized, we use the Plants of the World Online, and that's Kew Gardens hosts that website. It's a great website if you haven't been to go check it out. So give people a second to catch up here. Part 2. So how do you get started with iNaturalist? This is our platform. On the very left is our web browser interface. And this is what comes up if you haven't logged in or you don't have an account just yet. So it's the splash for it. Uh, there is a brand new mobile iNat app that is for both Android and iPhone, and it's called iNaturalist Next. And so that's the mobile app. And so a lot of people like to use the mobile app instead of the web-based browser. And then there is a huge contingency of people who appreciate Seek. And then the last on the very right is for folks that are really interested in getting in and taking a look at the data. I'm not going to touch on that because I'm not that savvy in that area, but I can look at the three to the left of that. So one thing that I want to mention about Seek, because we may have some aficionados of that particular part of the platform. Seek was initially developed for kids because we were concerned about their privacy. And there is a way in Seek to be able to port over your observation in Seek into the larger iNat community if you're interested. But generally speaking, Seek was made so that kids could point a phone and get some answers right away without any recording happening so that we could keep their privacy for them. That said, any information that iNat captures on its other platform, we do not sell anybody's information. We do, there are some moments that we have to understand where you are so that we can more accurately give you some identification for it, but that is not sold to anyone. Oftentimes in some of the California Native Plant Society chat areas, people will say they use Picture This or Google Lens to figure out what a plant is. Google is then, it's harvesting your information. So one of the things that I appreciate about iNat is we really take people's privacy very seriously, and it's not being, none of that information is being sold. So it's pretty simple. If you have an account, if you sign up for an account, all you need to do is record your observation. And there's a number of ways to do that. You can just take a picture with your cell phone. Or one of my favorite ways these days is if I hear a bird that I'm not very good at bird song. So I'll use the Merlin app and it'll capture the bird song. And then later I will upload that sound file from Merlin into iNat so that I have a record that I saw or heard this bird that particular day. So recording can either be a photograph, it could be a sound file. You could even draw a sketch and upload a scan of your sketch if you want. So the verb record is very open-ended. And then posting it to iNaturalist, so that's the sharing part, so that people can see what it was that you saw or had an encounter with, and then be able to offer an identification or discussion on it. So that's at a nutshell, that is iNaturalist, right? So all accounts are free, like I mentioned already. This gentleman is taking a photo with a cell phone. I would say the majority of observations are made that way, but there are many folks that really enjoy using bigger cameras. They might be having a lot of fun with being, engaging with nature photography. And so you can then port those as well into iNaturalist as well. So lots of different ways to record that first sort of record, shall we say. So when you do upload it, one of the things that comes up is what we call our computer vision. And so someone posted this beautiful moth right here is the Edwards glassy wing moth. They like oak trees in California. And right in the middle of my particular screen, what comes up is a number of suggestions. So the database comes back it takes a look at the photograph, and with the type of AI, it gives some ideas of what this could be, things that are visually similar. Now, every few months, the iNat staff retrains the model, and they're constantly adding more and more species to what we call this computer vision model, or you'll hear people call it the CB. So um, in this case, it's actually pretty accurate. This does happen to be an Edwards glassy wing moth. And so you can decide if you're going to accept the genus that it returned with, or you could go forward, and if you feel some confidence, go ahead and select to species if you're interested. So all of this data, these millions and millions of photos, that's what underlies this computer vision training set. This is how Seek works in the field. It's real-time identification on a cellular or Wi-Fi network. And you can see on the left, it's focused a little bit more on people really interested in gaining badges in the field, looking for different things. And I think that's one of the reasons why adults also really enjoy it, is there's some interaction that happens within the app itself. So if you're not using Seek or the mobile app, another way to upload is through the web browser. And here's a screenshot from my own account. And so on the lower left here, you're seeing my dashboard. What you would want to do when you're ready to upload your observations is to click the upload button here, and it'll move to this next page where it says drag and drop some photos or sounds. And then it'll populate on that page, and you can interact with taking a look at what it says for the computer vision and assigning what you think it might be to that. You can also just type in what some of you guys are probably very knowledgeable, and so you have an idea already what that plant is. You can also, in your settings, you can set them up so that you can either have it be a common name, or you can have it have the scientific name as well. And you can see on my page it's returning only scientific names, but you can toggle that so that you can see common names if that's more helpful. So once you have observed, uploaded your encounters with nature, what happens then? What's next? So here's a single observation, right? Managed to successfully upload it. This is the web browser version. You can see that I gave an ID. This one I was actually pretty confident in, so I went all the way to subspecies. Then someone takes a look at it, decides whether or not they're going to agree with me. In this case, someone did agree with me. And then a community member, somebody who I've become friends with over time. I've actually never met this person in real life, but she lives in San Francisco. I live in Oakland. So maybe someday we'll cross paths. She put a little mention on there that she enjoyed seeing the photographs for it. You can see over on the right here the location of where I saw this particular plant, and you can see where other observations are. Now this is in PowerPoint, so I can't zoom in and out, but this particular map actually is dynamic. So you can toggle zoom from that, and you can zoom way out and be able to see range maps if you're interested. And I really appreciate that function to be able to see how far south this goes. This is actually the southernmost portion of the range for this particular species. And I believe this goes maybe not the subspecies, but the species goes all the way up to Spokane. So that's kind of a fun species to take a look at. And then you can see under here the community taxon that 2 out of 2 people who have weighed in on this. So it's created this as research grade, and that's just it's what it's saying is it's been vetted to some extent. If a third person came along and said, no, it's not that, they can knock it back and it would drop from research grade down to just needs identification, just needs verification. So then another person might weigh in as well. So it's this weighing in that over time builds confidence in whether or not this is the correct identification for this particular observation. And then down at the bottom here, you can add some annotations. Is it flowering? Does it have leaves? Are there buds? Or is there fruit? If it's an animal, it might ask, is it a juvenile or is it an adult? So these annotations down in the lower right help offer more data to researchers and scientists who might be looking at your particular observations. This is the same observation, but on the iNaturalist Next app, so the mobile app on the phone. It looks somewhat similar, but the information is packaged slightly differently. And you can see here that here I'm the observer and that 2 people have looked at it and offered identification. I just happen to be one of those 2 people. There are 2 comments that are on this, and you can see there's the 2 identifications. And here's one of those 2 comments, and the other comment was just me saying, yeah, it's just with an iPhone that I took a photograph of this. So, and then there's the location, which you can click into and be able to actually see the map on another screen of the app. So, um, and then once these observations are up on the site, there's so many different ways to look at it. You can look at it based on place if you want. You can do searches. You can say, I'm really curious, what are all of the monocots that have been seen in a particular county or even a particular city, and I'll return back with that. Or maybe there's a particular species that you're interested in, maybe a goldenrod of some sort, and you want to see the distribution of what that looks like. So you can just go into iNat and ask that question and it'll come back. But one of the things that's really important, I think, for groups, community groups, and research institutions is this idea of projects. And so I wanted to cover that a little bit for you guys as well, especially since you are using a project to collate all the data that people are finding, seeing for the month of April for the Washington Native Plant Society. So there are 2 kinds of projects. So the first is the collection project. And what that is doing is it's listing out search parameters. So it's saying, when was the observation seen, and does it fit our parameters? And so for the WNPS Plant Appreciation Month, the time period is the month of April plus or minus a few days, I heard from Denise. So first of all, was it observed in April? It could be limited by, is it a plant? But Denise also wanted to make this more family friendly. So I think as the committee, I'm not sure who made these. I'm sure you guys came together and had great conversations. So to be more family friendly, they didn't limit it only to plants. So it's open to all organisms. and so forth. So you can put some limiting factors, and then within those limiting factors, iNat will literally just go ahead and sort them for you. It's a little bit like Harry Potter with the sorting hat. So it'll sort it and put it into the project if it fits all the parameters for that project. And that's called a collection project. And then, so you might have a number of collection projects. Then you can have an umbrella project that covers all of those individual projects. And I believe that uh, the one that's linked to the Native Plant Appreciation Month website is an umbrella project. So it's grabbing all of the ones for that have been set up. And here on the left is that umbrella project for your month, right? And you can see here are some of those collection projects underneath here. Some of them have, Denise and I were talking a little bit about how to finesse this a little. So this might change in the next couple of days here. And then on the right is one of the collection projects. And you can see it's populated already because this has been an ongoing project for this particular chapter of WNPS. So uh, lastly, what is a BioBlitz? Because you guys are about to engage in one. So really, it's surveying an area during a defined time period, and it helps establish what's there as a baseline. And then if you continue to have the same or similar BioBlitzes across the different years, then you can begin to map change if you're interested. And lastly, one of the things I think is really important about BioBlitzes is how it can really bring communities together to take a look at what was seen and to discuss what they're seeing. So one of the, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this particular BioBlitz because it's going to be happening at the exact same time as your April BioBlitz. And it's the City Nature Challenge. It happens this year, it's happening towards the end of April, April 25th, April 28th. And it's a global effort. Over 600 cities across the globe are participating, and it's very exciting. I would say in the last 10 years, it started about 10 years ago with just two cities, San Francisco and LA. And then we were having so much fun that other cities took note and said, hey, we want to participate. And I think after the first couple of years, quite a few cities in Texas became really interested. So they joined. And then after that, lots of different cities said, we want to participate. And it's become this very fun, great event. I end up spending a lot of time doing identification during it just to help push along what people are posting. So, and here's Washington's what who has signed up to join for this year. And so you probably see a lot of overlap from where you currently are geographically located to what's being represented on this map. And so for sure, looks like most of the Puget Sound area is participating, and you can even see our neighbors to the north, if we can still call them neighbors, please. So Vancouver and Victoria, and then down to the south, Portland. There, I see a little bit of it like creeping across the border to Washington, and then on the eastern side, we can see Spokane County is signed up as well, and so if you're not in those areas, there actually is another project called the Global Project that you can join. And your observations will go into the Global Project if you're interested. So even if you don't feel represented by these particular projects, you can still be included for sure. But any of your observations that you make for the Washington Native Plant Species Appreciation Month if you make them during the same time as this event that's going on, they will count in both BioBlitzes. So, um, yeah, it's super fun. Uh, One of the things that I really appreciate about iNaturalist is I think that there's so many amazing co-benefits that participating out, provides us outcomes. And key to, I think, iNaturalist, why it continues to be wonderful for people to engage with is that it connects a person to the natural world in a single moment. Like that, just that power of that is really quite beautiful. And then from that, it also connects communities who are concerned about like what is there and how do we conserve it or how do we restore it, right? Um, what is the natural world and how do we interact with it in our area that we live in, right? How do we take care of the natural world? And then very powerfully, many eyes, right? So researchers and land managers, they just have their lab or their staff and it's limited. So having the community out there, really all of those eyes bringing observations to light, it's huge. It really helps quite a few people. Um, I have a personal vision actually with iNaturalist, and that is when I think about what my grandparents or great grandparents saw when they were living in wherever they were living. And actually, my grandparents lived in Yakima Valley on my mother's side. I'm really curious, like what what were the natural native plants that they saw back then? And being able, there's no way for me to sort of see what they saw, but in the future, one of my grand nieces or nephews, they could probably go back and take a look at my account and say, wow, Aunt Kat, she saw this thing here and look, it's there. We can still see it. We were able to conserve it. So I think that's an amazing moment that INAT could preserve, actually. So I know it's very forward thinking, but it's an exciting thing to think about. So all this data that we've been talking about, all this collection that we're looking at, I just wanted to leave you guys with some illustrations of how it has been used. And so this was an early look of is American trout lily, which is primarily Midwest and the East Coast, is it flowering earlier? And by taking a look at the data, it is. So climate change is changing the phenology of this particular species. And so, see here, or here where we're really focused, this is a Southern California species and also moves over a little bit to Arizona, Utah. Um, what is its phenology? And this would be almost impossible for a research team to be able to track this because the number of records that are required to do this kind of study is phenomenal. So, and here somebody could really just take a look and spend a few months looking at it carefully and dissecting the information. So, or here's another example. One of our staff, INET staff members loves lizards, so he stuck this in. There's only 3 records of this kind of interaction for alligator lizards in the scientific literature, but in iNaturalist, people have seen it more than 300 times. So it's kind of nice to compare hypotheses within that. Or this is a friend of mine, somebody who I've met through iNaturalist as well. She's an amazing woman. She became aware that along this little road next to a reservoir hundreds, thousands of Pacific newts were being squished. And it's easily enough averted with correct road construction. So, and also the other thing is this road is not necessary to use during the rain. So they documented it and they were able to get some road closures during rainy seasons so that these newts can cross from where they are living and then get into the reservoir to complete their life cycle. So very important. And then on the right here is one of our iNaturalist staff members. This is Allison Young. She and Rebecca over here pulled together this project. They really wanted to understand what the biodiversity was at this particular place, Pillar Point. It's one of our few tide pool areas that we have in the Bay Area. And this was sort of the usual team that showed up at every low tide to document what they were seeing. And in the many years that they've been going every low tide that they can, they've managed to rack up almost, 43,000 observations, and they've uncovered almost 890 species. At the same time, this is how many people, over 1,200 people, have contributed to this particular project of just observations, going out there, taking a look at what's on the reef that's exposed during low tide. And it's really, helping scientists find out what's there. And one of the things that we began to notice that had never been seen before was this beautiful little nudibranch, which is really more southerly than our area, was starting to come in at more increasing numbers. And so that's a shift in the ocean temperature. So we're seeing some direct results around that happening. Oops, wrong way. So, and in the end, yes, there's all this data that comes out of this, but I've already alluded a little bit that over time, I've begun to build friendships with some of the people that I interact with quite a bit. And sometimes I run into them out hiking or at events. And so then our friendship is further cemented as a result. And so that community that I was talking about, it's so key. It really helps support, no matter who you are, if you're a casual observer or maybe somebody a little bit more intent on being out there and really like focused on learning about what's around us, to even the researcher or professional biologists, botanists, professional scientists of some sort. But iNat really holds all of these worlds. And so it becomes this, amazing repository of information. But it has a lot of power in it, but it also becomes this amazing platform in which we come together and we care about the world that's around us. So that in a nutshell is my training. And there's probably some questions. I actually really can't see them at the moment. I have one more slide that I just want to flash up there. You guys are very welcome to share. This is Creative Commons copyright, so it's open source. Just please keep any attributions with photos attached to those photos so that credit goes where credit is due. So I'm going to stop screen sharing here and maybe we can move to questions. And I can't see anything.
Hi, Kat. We do have questions.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to come back in here with you. Just 1 second. All right. I'm going to go to the very top. back to when you were talking about users and demographics. Has there been an analysis of users, demographics, where they're from, i.e., iNaturalist observations abroad being done more by travelers, tourists outside of the US, gender, age, etc.?
I'm going to write some of these down because these are really great.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not aware of any studies that breaks it down between visitors and residents. But there have been some studies of like who uses it. And I don't have those at my fingertips, but Denise, is there a place after all this where we can link any information for people to go to?
Absolutely. I can send
Okay.
out a resource list. I can also post links that you have here in the chat for people to write down.
Okay. So,
So folks, if I post a resource list, that would get posted with the recording on our recording page. And that could include some of your answers. Let's go to
great.
the next one. The next one was, how can users best support iNaturalist? I've heard that monthly donations are available. And yes, I put the donate link in the chat for you all, but I'm not sure how else we could help.
Oh, just participate. Just make observations. That is wonderful. And who is a monthly donator to iNat, thank you. As a board member, I'm trying to find all of you guys and send my own uh, actual personal thanks. But our community is so important in terms of like supporting that, and we're very thankful. So, and support the Washington Native Plant Society too, as well. So.
All right, the next question, what's the rarest species observed in iNaturalist? And how do you protect rare species encounters, i.e. locations, etc.?
So anything rare is obscured automatically. So say you load it up, and this actually took me a little bit of time to understand that because there is a rare plant in my area called the Oakland Star Tulip. And I live in Oakland. So I was like, this thing is so cool. And so I went looking at maps because I wanted to understand its distribution. And I noticed that I couldn't see I really couldn't see the distribution except for the ones I had seen. And I was like, that's weird. Why is that happening? But I didn't understand how rare it was until I really kind of started to look into it. So if you have a rare plant, or it doesn't matter whatever, if it's rare, it automatically gets this scrambled dot that is in a 20 by 40 kilometer sort of thing on the map. And the dot, instead of being a solid dot, is slightly grayed out to let you know that it's been obscured. So no worries on that. And also the other thing is when it's obscured, it will only say that it was seen during the month of. So not only is location obscured, but the date that it was seen is also sort of dropped a layer of information down. And what's the rarest? Oh, that's great question. But the thing is there are still species that are so rare they haven't even been placed on iNat yet. And so those I would say are the rarest. So maybe you could be the person to find one of those and be the first to post. There is a project in iNat that's literally the first observation of a species on iNat.
Here's a question about potential bad guys. How do you prevent trolls from dropping research grade observations?
Oh, so you can reach out to the community moderator and they'll review it. And if somebody continues to engage in that, they can suspend the account. But usually they reach out, they talk to them, they say, hey, are you aware that your behavior is not really supporting community standards? Really work with them. Again, within iNaturalist, there's so much diversity of users, and many folks might not have incredible social skills with dealing with other people. So we're really trying to like ask that question is, where is this person in their journey? How can we sort of figure that out and make sure that they understand that maybe the other person's not appreciating this, and then kind of work it out first. And then if that person just for whatever reason just continues to troll, then and they can continue to be a bad actor, then there's these other layers that can come into play.
Very good. And Diane, I just want to let you know I see your questions in a couple places, so I am going to get to them here. When hiking, should you post multiple views of same or similar plant/animals found along a route or in a large area?
So iNaturalist's rule about this is um, you can take a picture of a single observation or a single individual and post it from that day. So say you have a bird's nest and you want to capture how it's changing over a period of time. You can take a photograph of that bird's nest and post it, but please just post once a day on that. Unless for some reason something amazing really changed from morning to afternoon, maybe I think people would give you a little leeway on that, but it's a single observation by a single person on a single day. So say you have three people on a trail, you each see this amazing flower or mushroom, and three of you take a photograph of that same mushroom. You're totally allowed, all of you are allowed to put up your own observation of that same individual. It's totally fine.
Um, Here's a very broad question. What is an example of a traditional project?
Oh, so those are the older projects, and those have really changed. There are still traditional projects around. So traditional projects, you had the person who created the project had to then add the observations to the project. So it's a great project type if you're a researcher and you really want to hand pick your records that you want to place into that project. But what we're finding is a collection project is just way easier for most people to work with because you set the parameters and then iNat automatically sorts observations that fit those parameters into the project.
Okay, the next one. What's the difference between the iNaturalist app and iNaturalist Next? Is
Oh
one
yeah,
more
so
better
iNaturalist
as an iNaturalist user?
So iNaturalist app is the older app, and it'll still be around. It's not going to be sunsetted for a while, but iNaturalist Next is the second generation.
This one's long. I monitor rare plants in a national forest. Last year, I was accompanied by a scientist who was keen to post our findings on iNaturalist. When I checked his posting, it was disconcerting to find that comp- almost a competition by those locating and posting rare plants with their location and no appreciation for jurisdiction. Example, BLM, private land, fish and wildlife land. Is this a concern with those types of monitoring?
I think it is. I mean, I think that if you're posting from private land, you need to have permission from the landowner to be there and to follow any trespassing warnings that are out there. BLM is my understanding is that anybody can be there. Um, we always counsel we should be doing leave no trace and to be very cognizant of any like harm we might do to a landscape. So to be very careful and as um, considerate as possible while we're on the land. As a community, we need to be helping everybody understand that, right? And out there. And there have been times when I have been on a hike with people and somebody kicks a log And another person, and I loved this because like I was about to say, hey, that's not cool. And somebody else stepped up and said, I am not cool with that. Please replace the log and be very careful the next time we encounter a log. In fact, maybe consider not even rolling it. You know, that is not really something that we should be disrupting. So that I think talking about it, working it through, and helping educate other people about how we need to be on the land it's a moment where learning and teaching can happen at the same time. I don't know if I answered that question completely though. Did I?
Um, if you'd like to ask another question based on that answer, please repost. Okay, then this is a very specific question also. Do you have information about the new genus/species identified in Big Bend National Park? Who, how, what's next for the plant? And might iNaturalist be involved?
iNaturalist was involved in that actually. I read the story, and James Bailey, who is an avid user of iNat, helped assist find instances of that particular species. It's a beauty, isn't it? A gorgeous plant. And I don't know if I'll ever be privileged enough to be able to see it in person, but wouldn't that be an amazing moment if that were the case? But yes, and there are plenty of new species being uncovered because people see them and then they post them, and researchers see that and say, wait a second, this is something new. Let's take another look.
Very good. Wendy's asking an excellent question, which I get to answer a little bit. First of all, she says, thank you so much for a great presentation. I see the WMPS BioBlitz site already has over 293,000 observations. That is because initially setting up the umbrella project, I brought in a lot of work from Abe Lloyd, who's at Western and uses iNaturalist a lot, as you can tell, up in Whatcom County and also down in Salal. I am going to remove those projects with Abe's consult and have him create a just April project so that, but like I mentioned earlier, we are going to go to March 29th because of the Olympic chapter, and perhaps a little bit after the end of April because of some other chapter activities taking place. But we want to try to capture in our umbrella our time of Native Plant Appreciation Month. So thank you for that question. Yes, you can see them now, but those numbers will reduce. And I think a lot of those observations are part of Abe's role at Western as a associate professor and lots of folks out in the field posting with him. So we will change that, but thank you for that question. And then we have Brenda asking, would like to create a special project for a specific area, but she can't seem to find a way to define the geographic spot, which is as small as a display garden. How does one go about doing that?
So, describing places is a functionality that's been suspended a little bit in iNaturalist because it takes so much computing power. However, that said, it's still possible to define a place as long as it has, and I'm going to have this number wrong because, this is not my day job. But I think as long as it has fewer than 1,500 species, you can still define a place boundary. And I would go into the web browser to do that. I don't think that there's a way to do it through the mobile app in any way. So I think you have to go to the web platform and then go to places. And in that, there's a place to define a place. So if it's just a display garden, my guess is you'll be able to do that actually. And a map comes up and you just draw your your vertices and then save the polygon for it.
So that segues into how do I add a location? And it's my understanding from what you just said, you go to the website, iNaturalist.org, log in, and build your project that way, and then you can add a location. Is that correct?
Not exactly. So these are two different, I think these are slightly two different questions. So the first one
Okay.
was I have a small, like a
Space.
garden that I
Mhm,
want to say I want to make my own project and it's just for the garden.
mhm.
So that there, I think when it's small enough like that, it is possible to make your own place. Now, larger spaces or larger places are already populated into iNaturalist and they use the Google Street um, databases, I believe, actually, I'm not totally sure about, but they have incorporated data sets of places. So, for instance, all counties in US and other countries that use counties or provinces, those are already defined for iNaturalist. Cities are already defined. Most towns, but not all towns. Um, so you can usually, and then there are people who made places before they shut down the functionality of it. So, for instance, I believe like in California, there's the California coast has been defined as a place. I'm wouldn't be surprised if in Washington something similar as well. So one of the things that I would do first is look to see if a place was already described. Oh, another really helpful place set is parks. So most parks are entered into INAT as a place.
Very good.
Oh, and then latitude and longitude, like if you take a photograph with your cell phone, that latitude and longitude is usually captured, not always, depends on the cell tower reception and everything. But that moves with your metadata from your phone into the observation. So most people don't have to deal with it. I have a digital camera, but it doesn't record where I am. So when I drag and drop my photograph, then I have to actually locate where it was taken. And so I'll often just type in the park that I was in or at the city, and then I zoom in and I place a dot where I was on the trail. There are more technologically savvy ways of doing that. There are some people who have GPS locators or trackers, and when they start hiking, they start their GPS, and then they know how to map the trail their track from their GPS to the digital time stamp on their photo. I do not know how to do that, but there are people who know how. So that's their work process. So plenty of ways to do this.
Um, how does iNaturalist address data sovereignty when considering indigenous and/or tribal territories? Globally, this varies, but in the US, there are real tangible reasons tribes don't always share data openly.
Right. And so that kind of comes back to that same question about whose lands are you on and have you had permission? Right. So that's what I like. If you truly are concerned about tribal data sovereignty, I would go to the tribe and talk to them about it and see if it's something they're open to sharing or not.
Very good. And then there's I think the final question in this Q&A list is how do I join a project for the BioBlitz in South Puget Sound WNPS chapter? And there is an event scheduled on the South Sound calendar. I will tell you that. Or if you'd like to start your own project for a location near you, please go ahead and email me, WNPS@WNPS.org, and I'll bring your project into the umbrella. But do check with your chapter. There are a lot of events on the calendar, a lot of opportunities for using iNaturalist. Then we have this really long list on the chat, and I'm going to go through. I don't think I'm going to get to everyone, but I will also copy the chat questions and send them to Kat, and perhaps she can answer some of the questions. So we talked about revealing locations of rare species, and they are masked. Um, I would like to look for identification of subjects on old photos. How do I indicate where the picture was taken?
So well, first of all, I would suggest using the web platform to upload that. And I had the screenshot showing how to kind of move through that a little bit. A location map will come up when you drag and drop it, and then you can hit with your mouse just the location that you think it is. And then what happens is there's a circle of accuracy that can radiate out from that. So if you're not entirely sure where you were, you can make your circle of accuracy be really large. And so that it offers of, I'm not totally sure here. And that makes it significant to any researchers who are looking at that. They can realize, oh, it has a pretty big circle of accuracy. So we're not we know it's in this area, but where, we're not totally sure.
Um, are the photos in iNaturalist protected by copyright?
So that is up to the individual user. When you sign up for your account, you'll be presented with some choices of like which attributions you are interested in. And so some people want all rights reserved. So that means the photograph should only be used if the user has been contacted and offered permission. There are other licenses under that. Like for instance, the license that I have chosen has been if it's a non-commercial use, it's okay to use it without asking me, although I would love for people to let me know because it's kind of nice to know. But yeah, there's, I think, about 4 different choices. And so you can read through those and decide which one you're most interested in. And then if you're using photographs from iNat, double check, is that person okay with the use? What sort of restrictions have they placed on it? And I think it's very good to like pay respect to that.
Um,
Also, if something is locally rare, but um, not actually rare, you can set you can obscure it manually too if you want.
Someone wanted to see a plant that I think was in your presentation, so that's awesome. That makes me smile. Thank you for your post. Um, I love iNaturalist. Is there a reason I would switch to or also want to use the mobile app?
It's up to you. If you want to use the mobile app, go for it. If you already have a workflow that works for you, I would, try both. See if you end up liking the mobile app. I personally prefer the web browser, but I'm old school, I guess. I don't know what to say. Um, I do use the mobile app because taking photographs with my phone is so easy. I use the mobile app to upload, and then once I'm done uploading, I move over to the web browser on my phone. Like I literally, I'm still on my phone, but I'm using the web browser instead. And the reason for that is I really like to kind of look under the hood. I'd like to learn about whatever that organism is. So I go and I look at range maps. I try to research a little bit more about whatever it is. The mobile app isn't as flexible around that. So, but it's fine. Everybody has different levels of engagement.
There's a couple questions I saw. One was about tracking phonology, which is possible in iNaturalist. This other is how to use iNaturalist to record behavior or tracks or nests. So that's
You
kind
can
of
totally do
outside of
that.
the plant realm for us. And I just want to say I watched a webinar on using the phonology features in iNaturalist and was fabulous. And I believe that webinar is still posted on the website. And I recommend it. It's very good. And it is a iNaturalist webinar that was offered. They have them too. Very good.
Oh, this is a really good question that's here. Somebody's wondering in terms of identifying, do you go to species versus genus? Um, I think you should stick with what you're confident in. So if you're confident to genus, stick to genus. If you feel great about species, go to species. Sometimes I feel a little iffy about something, so I'll stay to family even. So you don't even have to, yeah, it's wherever you are on the taxonomy kingdom scale, just find where you're comfortable and just keep it at that. And before we move over to like maybe the identification side of things, one thing that I would like to say is even if you don't know what something is, most of us can figure out if it's a plant or an animal. So just even saying it's a plant is fine, or an animal or a fungi. Sometimes it's harder though. So if that's the case, you could probably just say it's life and you're just unsure, and that's okay.
Um, Here's a question. Should we photo and upload plants that we know just to add to instances for this plant occurring? For example, the ponderosa pine is common in my area, so why upload that? Not sure if you're counting frequency or only rare occurrences.
So INAT is what's often labeled big data, and every people are gonna they're gonna upload things that are just interesting to them, which is completely fine. There's no, there's no judgment in any of that. So even if you make a decision that you're completely uninterested in ponderosa pine, there might be somebody else who that's their jam. They really enjoy them, so they're going to post them. And it all evens out, right? Because it's big data. You just want lots of records. Um, that said, if you know it's something ornamental and it's been planted, we really appreciate that you mark it that way so that researchers and land managers can make the best decisions about the data that's being shown. Now, people can come back to your observation and mark it cultivated or captive. And again, it's that voting system of one person marks it and somebody else comes along and marks it the other way. And then it might languish for a little bit. And then a third person comes and marks something else. But the idea is enough people look at it that it settles into probably an accurate picture of what it is. So I do see oftentimes it's clearly something that's been planted, like it's in a pot, right? And it's clearly came from a nursery, and somebody has marked that it's cultivated, and then the original poster says, no, it's wild. So they click that it's not cultivated. And then it sits in limbo, right? Because nobody else is really looking at it. Um, so that happens. So that's why we really appreciate if it's something cultivated, please mark it such. Oh yeah, how do you treat areas being restored with native plants? That is a conundrum. I'm on the fence on that one too. So I think if it's self-sustaining, this is my personal opinion. If it's self-sustaining and it's looking like it's continuing to reproduce, then I think you could call that non-cultivated because it is starting to continue on its own without human intervention moving, increasing its population. But if it's clearly a restoration that continues to need help and it's being managed and gardened, basically, it's sort of up to you if you want to mark it as cultivated. I don't think that's the best answer. So keep asking that question of everybody and we'll come up with some discussion around that. Denise, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. There was a background sound here. Donna is asking, is there a way to identify different observations of the same organism taken at different times? For example, the bird nest example. How could you look at multiple observation of the same item next throughout the year, which speaks to that phenology feature a little bit?
Yeah, so that has to do with the search function of iNaturalist. So what you could do is, and I'm going to speak to the web browser portion of the platform right now because I'm a little bit more comfortable in that. I think there is definitely a way to do it in the mobile app as well. But what you would do is you would search for birds and maybe you even know what kind of bird made the nest. So you could search by the species of birds and limit the search to the location that it was taken. And then what will come up is all of the observations of that particular species for that location. You can even limit the search to a particular time period if you want, if you just only wanted to look for 1 year. Maybe you have a bird or a set of birds that are nesting in the same spot across multiple years. So there might be reasons why you want to limit it by time as well, but that would be the best, and it would return with all of your observations for that.
One person over here, I didn't ask this question. What to do when posted plant IDs are very wrong? This seems to happen too often with unusual cultivars.
So if you have knowledge of that, you please add an identification. And one of the things that I appreciate about the interface for iNat is when you go to add an identification, you have a field where you can type in the species, or maybe it's genus or family that you're going to keep it at. There's a box that says why, and you can populate that with your reasoning. And I do think that people appreciate having a little bit of a comment of why it's not this versus that, because again, it's a learning opportunity, and they may have thought it was one thing, and it's a moment for some interaction and learning education happening moving forward. I tend to identify a lot, so I'll move through my identifications almost too quickly. But I tell people, please feel free anytime to reach out and ask why. I'm happy to interact on for the reasons why I disagreed.
Okay, I'm just going to do a couple more, but there are many thank yous for a great talk, Kat. So thank you for being here with us. This one is interesting. When I upload a photo and tap location for an observation on the app, it takes me to a map with the default location near Ghana. Then I tap the location icon, the dot in the circle, so the location moves to my actual location. Can it be set so that the location field automatically populates to my current location?
This is interesting. It should not be working that way. So what I would suggest is take screenshots and then send them to the help@iNaturalist.org email. Um, Also include pertinent information like what's your operating system, what if you're using a browser, what browser are you using, things like that. And they should be able to set it right for you because it should be coming up with where you are. It shouldn't be, unless you're in Ghana, it shouldn't be defaulting to Ghana.
Hey, I think maybe we go to the help session. Um, we've covered
But
lots of questions, so
yeah,
thank
we
you
have, and I want to thank
for a
everybody.
robust conversation.
I want to thank everyone, and I look forward to meeting you on iNaturalist. I'll be taking a look at some of these that are coming up in the next month. I probably won't be able to help with identification because it's not my area, but I'm really excited to see what everybody sees out there. So good luck, everyone. If you're interested on staying on and just kind of walking through some identification stuff, stay with me. I'm just going to share my screen and kind of show a little bit of my workflow. But if everybody jumps off, that's totally fine too.
Thank you all for being here. Our next Native Plant Appreciation Month webinar is April 10th. But I promise you, if you look on the event calendar on the WNPS.org website, you may very well find something happening in a location near you. Thank you, and we'll be back on April 10th. For those that want to stay, please feel free to enjoy more with Kat. Thank you.
Okay, well, it looks like that number's dropping a tiny bit. But it looks like we have about 50 people. So let me share my web browser really quickly with you guys. Oh, I thought I had my web browser open. Oh, it says Zoom for some reason. Why? Why? There we go. Okay. Is my window showing? Yeah, it says I'm screen sharing. So
Yes.
one of the things I was just wanted to show a little bit was some of my identification flow. And so one of the things I'm um, currently a part of is I do rare plant monitoring for my local CMPS chapter. And so we have this project that's here. It's kind of a big project. So if I go to the about of it, and you saw that I searched for it by name, and here it is, it's coming up. The person who set up this project limited it only to plants and to the two counties that my local chapter serves. And you can see there's over 400,000 observations of plants. I've been going through them just to like clean it up. And boy, is it a process. So here are all the observations that are entering into this project. And currently it's by date. And so you're seeing this was the most recent upload was this little I think it's a liverwort. Somebody else on here probably knows this genus better than I do. But over here under filters, I click this and I can apply all these different filters. And the first thing I'm going to filter by is what needs to be identified. So I'm going to hit identify, and it comes up with this tool, this identification tool. These are all the plants that are in this project that need somebody to take a look at them. So and then the other thing that I'm doing for this particular project is I'm only looking at things that are at genus, not to species. So here I am limiting to genus. And then I can do it by, the last thing that was uploaded that fits this, or what I like a little bit better is to just do random. I don't know why. I just do. So here it is. It's been randomized. It's coming up. And I can click on it and this window shows up and I can look at it a little bit more carefully. And maybe some of you guys might be able to weigh in on this, but I actually think that this is a cultivated blackberry, to tell you the truth, because it doesn't have any thorns. It's looking very weird. I'm not gonna even touch this one because I'm a little unsure about it. So my confidence level is low. I'm just gonna say I reviewed it. And then I'm gonna move to the next one. This is a grass. But the person or someone said, well, it's in this order. They weren't very confident either. So I'm going to add an ID and I'm going to type in grasses. And the thing that is going to come up is it populates with the scientific name of grasses. So this is the good thing about having both scientific names and common names is it will take both. So you don't have to remember every common name if you want. So I'm going to say, yes, it's in this family, and then I'll save. Now, if I had a little more time, I'd probably write a little thing saying, this is why it's a grass and not a sedge or a cattail or a rush. But I think I'm not going to waste any time on this particular one. If somebody wants to know more, they can ask the question, how do you tell? And then I'll spend more time interacting with it. So then I can hit the next one. Oh, so here we have a disagreement. This, I actually know who the observer is, and he only posts things from one mountain in California, Mount Diablo, and which is kind of fun because I spent a lot of time there too. So I'm pretty familiar with its flora. He thought it was a silver puff, but somebody else has come along and said it's not. Um, so I'm going to take a look at this. I personally am not sure, to tell you the truth. So I'm just going to review it so I don't see it again in a search, and I'm just going to move on. So I'm hoping that in the future there's going to be somebody who understands this particular Daisy member subtribe a little bit better, and maybe they can weigh in a little on it. So, and then here's one that I bet you guys have as well. It's the common thistle. So it's Sericium. And the other nice thing about uh, iNat is it starts to populate when you just have a few letters. And you can even I've seen some people just do the first three letters of each name and then it comes up. So that's a nice little shortcut right there. And then save. Um, So yeah, and that's basically what I do is I'll just move through these and either decide can I actually help, or maybe it's something that I'm not confident in, so I'll just move on from that. Now this particular project, because it's the East Bay CMPS project, it's already filtering for plants. If you guys don't really feel like you have a lot of identification knowledge behind you, what you can do is just, identify. I just went back to my dashboard. And so this isn't connected to any project. It's just what people are seeing in the Bay Area. You can even filter for things that are unknown and say, I want to, yes, unknown. Wait, why is it? Something is not, oh, because it's for, I would need to reset my dates, sorry. So filtering for unknown. So here's a whole bunch of unknown things. And this is where when you have people who don't have a lot of basis, this is a great place to start because we all know if it's a plant, right? So you can literally add plant and just say it's kingdom plant, or this one looks like it's a dicot, so maybe you know a little bit more about plants, so you could say it's a dicot and save. And at least then it adds the attribute that it is a plant, and it no longer is in this like unknown, this whole unknown sort of, I don't know what we would call it, just kind of sitting there, right? Hard for people to see. And within the Bay Area, there are 180 pages of things that are considered that don't have any ID connected to it. So having people just kind of go through these is a really great way to start to build a practice of learning your plants. And I would say when I first started identifying, so my background, I have an undergraduate degree in landscape architecture, and I have taken many plants and plant ID, and I've taken some botany classes as well. And I thought I had a good handle on what is our native species in the area. I had no idea how little I really knew until I started to interact with iNaturalist, and now a few years later, I have more confidence, and I'm beginning to really kind of understand even some of the more difficult taxa when we're out there looking at things, like some of the things in the borage family, which can be very tricky. And it's really fun to be able to take a look at something and say, oh, hey, I can identify the genus, but now I'm beginning to see the fine shades of like why it might be this species instead of that species. And this one is very common, but this one over here is locally rare and it needs some attention. So understanding that and getting to know that has been a real gift. And then also being in the field with people who really do know some of these finer points and be able to ask them, okay, I'm looking at this thing. What are the characteristics that I need to pay attention to? And having that one-on-one with somebody who is a practice botanist, it's a gift. So I really appreciate it. So I can't really, when I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to stop sharing. Um, I can't really see any of the questions, but um, was there anything that
So if we go down to the bottom of the chat, the first question was, um, where do we start? We started out on the Identify tab, um, and you went to genus. So that was that. I'm just double, and I don't think there's any more questions at the moment.
okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll give people another second to think of a question, but if not, something that you can always do in iNat as well is you can tag me. So in a comment or a note, you just put the @ sign, and then my iNat username is Cat Chang. And so I'll get a little notification that you reached out and tagged me, and I'll do what I can to help, or at least try to find somebody who might know the answer. I might not be able to, and I'll say if I can or can't. Um, yeah, there you go, Cat Chang. But you put the @ sign first in front of it. Yes, that's exactly @Cat Chang. And then I'll get a notification that says, hey, somebody flagged you. So,
Very good. Well, I have learned things tonight, and I look forward to this. Are there any other specific questions for Chat or for Kat at this time?
will everybody, oh, wait, there's one. Reviewed, not revised, check box. What is the question exactly? Oh, about cultivated. Oh, yes. Yes, exactly. Um, so I can share my screen again if that's helpful. Um, so here it is. So if I click on something here, down here, there's a couple of choices. If you've decided that this is something that you're really interested in or curious, you can add it to your favorites, and then you can call up your favorites later to review. It's a nice way of being able to mark an observation. Um, and it lets the person who put the observation up, it lets them know that you appreciated it and you liked it. It's always a nice thing to know. But then next to that, you can either mark something cultivated or just reviewed. Please don't mark it cultivated if you don't know. But if you do, if you feel pretty confident about it, just go ahead. Or reviewed. So I can click review if you want right here and then move on if I wanted to, but I can also add an idea here. I can say it's in the broccoli family. So, um, and the other thing is when you do add an idea, it automatically hits the review. So let me go back to something that looked cultivated and we'll like this one. That looks kind of cultivated. Pretty sure that's cultivated. So then I can just click it and notice that the review also became clicked at the same time. And then if I come, I'm not, oh, there's a bird. Look at that. I'm not sure what kind of bird that is. Woodpecker? I'll just put birds. I'm not so good with my bird ID, so this is about as confident as I'll get on that. So when I hit save, you'll see the review, you'll see the reviewed is going to get hit, I think. Yeah, there it is. So it shows it saved it as that. Um, but if I go back to that one here, here on the map, and you can see how I can zoom out really pretty quickly with my mouse. So what it's showing is every single observation of birds within that map. And if I zoom out quite a bit, you can see that birds are very, you know, they're a lovely, beloved species for us. So it's populating quite a bit, right? But if we were to go to another species that is a little rarer, let's go back to that gentiana. Wait, what is Finis ovata? So I won't go to subspecies here, but I'll go to the main species. So here's that beautiful flower again. And if I go to the map, so I've limited my dashboard to San Francisco Bay Area because that's where I live. And so you can see it's just the upper part, but if I remove the place restriction, here's the native range of that particular species. And if I zoom back in, you can see how it moves up into the western part of Washington and the sort of the eastern edge of Washington, western edge of Idaho. So you guys are lucky enough. Now I have some search limiters up here, so I can draw that and say, I just want to look at the ones that are in this little area. And so here they are, they've come up, and then I can move from the map view to the grid view and sort of see all of them in a nice presentation, right? So then I can kind of look at them this way and just sort of see, you know, how are they different from the ones that are in my area? They look a little more narrower in the throat, a tiny bit, but I don't know if that's real. It's just what I'm seeing. It would be fun to talk to somebody about this and understand it. Am I really seeing that? Because like this one right here looks a lot like the one that I posted, right? So yeah, this would be great to talk to somebody who really understands this particular population a little more. Maybe somebody who's on this webinar is one of those people. So, are there any other questions?
Thank yous. Lots of thank yous, Kat. This has been
Okay.
fun.
Well, you guys have a wonderful evening and have a wonderful month.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and send you these chat questions and all of those things. And if you could think of a few resources, as you mentioned, we'll go ahead and post those on the recordings webpage. The NPAM recordings will be all together. They'll also be posted on the NPAM page, and we can put a PDF of resources there as well. Yay.
Have a
Thank you
wonderful
all.
evening, everyone.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you on April 10th.
Okay, I'm going to call it quits.